Hey guys, welcome back to the Work Hard, Live Soft podcast, where I teach you how to build a successful business so you have the freedom to design a life that you love. So earlier this week, I was reflecting on my journey of entrepreneurship, and I was actually having a conversation with a client who she's also doing pretty well in business, but she was just talking about that there are so many hard parts of entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't talk about. And it got me thinking about wanting to just share the hardships of entrepreneurship that aren't as transparent as when people are sharing the wins. And I even think about my overall content when I talk about being a 7-figure entrepreneur and having 5-figure launches and having a team and being profitable and blah, 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 right? All of the wins, which I'm so grateful for. And I share those wins as like an example of what other people can do. And I share it so other people can feel encouraged by what is possible for them. As somebody who started out not knowing what they were doing, as somebody who dropped out of college and pretty much just had to figure it out, I share my successes in business because I want people to see that if I'm able to do it and figure it out, that they are also able to do it with the right support and with the right strategies. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about what it really looks like to build a successful business and some of the dark sides of business that you might not often see shared on social media. And just even when I was thinking like overall, all of the stressors that I've had to deal with, I'm like, I think that this needs to be talked about more. But I actually want to break this down into different phases because when I'm teaching my clients how to grow and scale their businesses, I tell them that there are 4 major phases of business, and I teach them the different things that they need to be focused on at each phase. But I also want to talk about some of the major losses or the scary parts of those phases that I have personally dealt with. And so the 4 phases of business that we are going to talk about today, I identify them as the discover phase, the launch phase, the grow phase, and the scale phase. And when I'm talking about it in terms of like brand terms, how my clients look at it, I describe them as like the activate phase, right? Like when you're discovering your business, you're really now activating your brand voice and you're activating your message. And then we have the accelerate phase where now that people know who you are, you're accelerating your message, you're getting in front of more people. Then we have our ascension phase where we're now leveling up, we're adding different offers, we're keeping people in our customer cycle longer. And then we have our amplify phase where we are scaling, maybe creating like micro businesses or new departments within our company. But in the activate phase or in the discover phase, this is where pretty much nobody knows you and you are starting from scratch. And your main focus in this phase is just simply to be seen and heard. You're like, I'm entering a market that is already saturated. I know that I have a skill set, but I'm dealing with a level of imposter syndrome. And this phase can be fun, but it can also be scary because you're doing a lot of trial and error. And in this phase, what I see happen a lot is that people are doing a lot of work for free. And I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with doing work for free, but I just always think we should put a price point to something, even if we're simply just charging for our time so that we can take the project more seriously and so that our ideal client can take the project more seriously. But what's really scary about this phase is that we are actually playing trial and error with people's money. And it doesn't mean that, you're a fraud and that you don't know what you're doing. It just means that you might not have ever used your skill set as an entrepreneur before. Maybe you have used your skill set for free for friends and family, or you have used your skill set at your 9-to-5. But when you are working with clients for the first time, your onboarding process may not be that amazing. Your communication may not be the absolute best. And so while I hope some of the things that I teach you in my podcast, or if you've ever taken any of my classes or courses, can help you bypass some of these mistakes, some of the scary things that you will deal with when you're doing trial and error and you don't get support will be, I didn't onboard the client right, or I didn't set up a system for communication to make sure I responded within 24 hours. And so when I was in this phase, I remember I was running my design business And I think, what year would this have been? I think it was maybe like 2012. And I was helping a client design a magazine. And at this time, a lot of my experience was designing online. So, designing MySpace pages, designing websites, graphics, business cards, logos. And a client wanted to work with me to help her design her very first print magazine. And if you are a designer out there, you know that there is a difference between designing for the web and designing for print. So we ran into so many issues because in my mind, I felt like I could design for print because I'm like, well, I have the right software, I have skills in my mind, but we ran into so many issues and I felt so bad as a designer, even though honestly, in hindsight, I did feel bad, but I also knew that she was also working with me because I was so cheap. So it's like, this also, like, from a consumer point of view, you get what you pay for. But I remember just feeling so guilty. And I even remember, like, during the project, there was an article in the magazine, I think, about kids with autism. And so I found a picture of a child with autism, and she was mad that I used a photo of a child with autism, and she like yelled at me for it. And I remember crying because I didn't have much experience with disappointing a client. And so at the beginning phases, you will go through the trial and error of seeing what it looks like when you first disappoint a client. And even as you grow in your business and you put the right parameters in place to have an amazing client experience and customer experience, every once in a while, you're going to have a client that is just not pleased with something. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you did the wrong thing, but it just means that you are dealing with humans. And your responsibility is to not take it personally and to do the best you can to rectify the situation, even if the client was at fault. Hopefully, we're working with people who also believe in taking accountability and personal responsibility. But as an entrepreneur, the best thing that you can do for yourself is say, like, how can I take accountability for my part in this? And is there something that I can do to rectify this, especially if this is a client I want to continue working with? So I would say going through the trial and error of figuring things out, learning things, testing things with clients, and potentially disappointing clients is something that you're really going to deal with in the discover phase. Also in the discover phase, you're also working off of referrals. And although I wouldn't recommend your 100% of your marketing strategy being all referrals, I will say that referrals are good because when somebody refers you, whoever sent the referral, that new potential client trusts the person who made the referral. So they already come in trusting you. And so that's a great thing. We want our clients to trust us. But when you drop the ball on delivering on that trust that they expected and they had these high expectations, it can not feel good at all. So do your best to create an amazing client experience. But if you're new and you're still testing things out, you have to learn as you go. And that's just the game of business. And it's scary, but it's going to help you become better. And the last thing I'll say about this phase is that I have recognized that the most difficult clients are the ones that have helped me build a bulletproof system and bulletproof contracts, because I create now processes and systems to make sure I don't make the same mistake, or that I never attract clients again who I don't want to work with or that I'm not compatible with. So shout out to the difficult clients for just making us better, even if that was not their goal. Now, the second phase, the launch phase or the accelerate phase, at this point, you have done enough trial and error to really understand what your it thing is, what your signature offer is. And so at this phase, you are creating a level of predictability in terms of, what you're making month after month. Maybe at this point, you're at $5,000 a month or $8,000 a month, maybe even $10,000 a month. And it's starting to feel really good. But what is scary about this phase is that you don't actually have a lot of automations and you're still doing a lot of things manually. And I remember being in a season of hitting my first 5-figure months, making $10,000 a month. And when I say 5 figures, I literally mean between 10 to 11,000. And when I say between 10 to 11,000, I mean I probably didn't go over 10,600. My goal was just to make $10,000 a month. And because that's what my vision was on, that is what I essentially manifested, right? I was excited to make that type of money per month. But what scared me, every single month on the first, when my Stripe and my PayPal went back to zero, I was like, how on earth am I going to do this again from scratch? Like, I would feel like a total badass. I would feel like a champion, like on the 29th, 30th, or 31st, when it said, Maya made $10,299. I'm like, boom, I did it again. I'm feeling really good about it. But baby, when I woke up on the first, I'm like, how on earth am I going to go from zero to $10,000 in 30 days? My brain could not fathom how I was going to do it. I knew that I had an audience. I knew that I had offers. And so I would just wake up and hustle. I would be on Periscope. For those of you who might not be familiar with Periscope, it was a live platform that eventually Twitter bought out, but it was so popular back then. I would be live every single day selling something, connecting with my audience. I would do webinars. I was sending out emails. I was blogging. Like, I was a content machine, because what I knew for sure was that I needed to go from zero to 10,000, and I needed a way to figure out how to do it on my own. And so some of the scary things during this phase is trying to figure out, how am I going to make this money when you don't have automations, you don't really have systems, you don't even really have a full understanding of a launch cycle. You just know that your money is a direct correlation of your daily efforts. Whereas where we talk about the scale phase, your money is going to be a correlation of the systems that you have in place. And so my systems back then were very manual. So if you don't have a system in place right now, you're probably like, okay, I only make money when I go live, or I only make money if I have people DMing me or asking me questions about things. So it can be really scary in this phase when you're like, I honestly have no idea, but I just have enough faith that if I go live 30 days out of this month, that I will be able to make the money. So I loved this phase because it really showed me what I was made of. In this phase, I was still a solopreneur. I think I had maybe one or two people on my team supporting me a little bit with like copywriting and setting up my landing pages and stuff, but I was solely responsible for creating the revenue in my company. Then in the grow phase, or the ascension phase, the issue that you're going to run into here is, now that you've created this the predictability with revenue, you're going to start feeling yourself a little bit, which is fine. You know, I want you to feel confident in all of that. But in this phase, I had so many different offers, because I was like, I know people are going to buy like whatever I put out there, and everything that I put out there was done with integrity. It was all stuff that was actually helpful. But I had so many offers that I then started creating confusion with my audience. And so I recognized that instead of people just buying like on autopilot, like how I was used to when I would go live, people would then now start like DMing me. People would then start now like sending me emails like, "Ooh, Maya, I'm excited to work with you, but which offer should I buy?" And I'm like, okay, there's a gap from people hearing me on live to going straight to checkout. The gap is I have too many things out there. And so you have to get to a point where if you're going to have more than 1 to 2 offers, you know how they fit within your ecosystem, and it's not creating confusion with your audience. This is one of the main reasons why I teach people to create their signature offer, because it just gives people a direct way to work with you without having to question, what exactly should I pay you for? And then once you do start creating more offers, it should be obvious, like start with this one, then go with this one. And when you start having multiple offers, you're now no longer just competing with your competitors, you're competing with yourself, because you're creating your own confusion within your own ecosystem. So you want to make sure that you are not creating too much confusion. The other dark side of entrepreneurship, so to speak, when you're in this phase is you're now making about $100,000 a year, and you're at a place where you need support, but you're not really making enough money to get the type of support that you need. For those of you who have already hit the $100,000 a mark threshold, you probably have recognized like, yay, congratulations, I'm making 6 figures, but Six figures isn't as much as I thought it was going to be. And when I say six figures, I mean just $100,000, like the bare minimum of making six figures. You recognize, damn, I'm starting to get burnt out. Like I need support because I'm still doing one-on-one. I'm still the person who is providing the service. And I'm grateful to have these clients, but I actually need more support because I'm still playing customer support. I'm still designing my own graphics. I'm still writing my own emails, writing my own captions, and still servicing the client. And so you're getting to a point where you're like, I need to figure out a balance of having enough money to pay a team to support me so I'm not slacking in showing up for my clients. So you want to be really mindful during this phase of how you're allocating your resources. And you also want to start considering, do I want to scale in terms of selling more digital products so I'm not showing up one-on-one? Do I want to scale and start transitioning to group? Like you have to really start thinking about that. Or do I need to increase my rates? Another scary thing this was scary for me. It might not feel like that for anybody else, but between like the launch and the grow phase, or the accelerate and the ascension phase, was my brand started to get popular and I started to somewhat be known as like a public figure. And this freaked me out a lot because one of the things that I love and appreciate about my brand the most is being relatable to my audience and being able to connect with them and feel like I have a genuine relationship with them. And I remember as my brand was blowing up and I was becoming more visible online, I remember going somewhere and somebody met me in person and they were like, oh my gosh, I'm totally having a fangirl moment. And I had never heard the term fangirl. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this person actually thinks I'm important. This person actually thinks I'm a bigger deal than what I really am. Like the imposter syndrome was just running rampant in my head. And so for me, it caused me to shrink because I'm like, I don't want people, there was something in my brain that was like, I don't want people to find out that I'm actually just a regular person or like, how long can I keep up this facade? It's not that I was trying to portray that I was more important than I really was, but when I recognized that people had a high level of respect for me or admiration for me, it made me feel nervous that I wouldn't be able to meet their expectations. And so I would just say, like, my advice for you is to just accept the fact that you are transforming people's lives, that you are influencing and impacting people in a positive way, and don't allow it to make you shrink. This was definitely a season where I started to introduce God more in my business because I'm like, should I let them know that, I'm successful because of God and not by my own power? It was just a really interesting season for me. I am grateful that I introduced God to my business, but I still needed to learn how to just humbly receive any like admiration that was coming my way instead of being like completely weird about it. Then we have our scale phase or our amplify phase, where we're now going beyond a $250,000, maybe going beyond 500 million, going to 7 figures, right? And this is an exciting phase because you're now starting to see yourself as a CEO. You're really seeing your skills in terms of leadership, and you're growing. But this is the scariest phase, I believe, because you're dealing with more people. You're dealing with more people in terms of, and I'm speaking to the fact of if you have a service-based business, but you're dealing with more people if you end up having more clients, and you're also dealing with more people when you have more employees or contractors on your team. And if you ask any like 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur, the most prominent response you'll get when you say, what's the hardest part about business? They're going to say managing a team or leading a team. It's the mental capacity to be able to feel the responsibility of other people is just so scary. It's like, it's cool to say, yes, I have a 7-figure company or I have an 8-figure company, but the amount of pressure that comes behind around that is like, oh my gosh. And so I remember like my first or second 7-figure year, I had so many clients, and there was like a disconnect of, well, how much access do we have to Maya? And, Maya now has all these other people to her team. Do we have direct access to Maya and all of this stuff? And I can't really speak to, did I not level set what it would be like working with me or hiring me or, enrolling one of my programs to my companies? Or was it just a level of entitlement that people felt like they should have direct access to me through customer service and as a coach and as this and as that? And so you will find that the more people you serve, it creates more opportunity for people to not be pleased with you. The more people you get in front of, the more visible you become, the more criticism you will deal with. And I really wish that I had been prepared for that level of success, knowing that more criticism came with it, because my love language is words of affirmation. And I deeply have a heart to serve people. Like, I'm a recovering people pleaser. I want people to be happy with my service. I want people to feel pleased by what I'm putting out there. And I do my best to give my absolute best. So knowing I disappointed one person hurts my feelings. When it's a group of people, it's like, oh my gosh, just dig a hole in the ground and stick me in there and don't ever let me come out. Like, just let me go meet my Lord and Savior, because I have no purpose on this earth anymore. Like, I'm so dramatic about how, like, when I disappoint people, because it's a feeling that doesn't feel good. But I think what hurts the most is when you disappoint a client and they don't feel like there's enough rapport between you and them that they can just come to you and talk about the problem, and they take that problem to somebody else in the program or to to the public or whatever it is. And so my hope and my prayer is that you don't have to deal with this on such a massive or public level, but just know, again, like coming back to the potential of being critiqued publicly or disappointing people publicly, to have that mental preparation of how you would want to handle that, to have legal preparation of how you would want to handle that, and also knowing that even when you are doing your absolute best and even when you are operating within integrity, some people are just not going to be happy, because people be peopling, and it just is what it is. And so I dealt with some of that. I would say that's probably for me like the most devastating thing in business. By the grace of God, I don't deal with it on a consistent basis, but even dealing with it, if it's once a year or once every 2 years, it creates such a distraction that it's something that I say it's important to plan for. I remember telling God, like, God, if you want me to run this business, you want me to keep serving the women that you have called me to, you want me to keep doing Impact Weekend, you want me to keep running these coaching programs so I can help women grow their businesses, only bring me clients that I can best serve and that are going to feel satisfied with what we provide, because I'm not dealing with the nonsense of gossip and lies and all of that with my name. I'm just not doing it. So God, if you want me to be obedient, make it simple for me to be obedient. And I swear that was my prayer. And ever since then, like, it's kind of been smooth sailing. Like, even when we've had some clients that we recognize weren't a good fit, we were able to amicably part ways where we still felt okay and the client still felt okay. So I'm grateful for that. Then you have the challenge of being a CEO and leading people. And I'll say, like, what's challenging for me about being a CEO and wanting to lead and manage people is that I've never really worked in corporate. I've never had a leadership role or management role outside of the company that I run. So I don't have a lot of experience of, like, what is the right way to go about something? What's the right way to pay people? Do I need to give people benefits? And I'm figuring things out as I go. And it's scary to figure things out as you go and you think people are looking at you as if you have all of the answers. And I'm like, I don't have all of the answers. What I know I'm great at messaging, I'm great at launching, I'm great at content, and I'm pretty good at making money. Everything else, I'm Googling and trying to figure out, and I'm asking friends, and I'm hiring coaches, and I'm, taking trainings, trying to figure out these things, because I just want to make sure that I serve people well, whether it's my team or whether it's my clients. But you can also end up disappointing your team members. It's scary when you know you need support, but you haven't created an environment for people to grow, or you haven't created an environment where maybe you didn't hire the right people or whatever it is. But also just giving yourself grace that you're learning as you go. One of the things that I have to remind myself of, to give myself grace and to give other people grace, is that This is my first time being a CEO at this level. This is my first time having a team of 8. This is my first time being 33 years old. This is my first time running a business in 2024. So there's just some things I'm just not going to know how to do because it's my first time doing it and my first time experiencing it. And while it's my responsibility to give my absolute best, giving myself also that grace and space to say, you're doing your best, but you still don't know what you don't know. So I just wanted to share some of the scary parts of entrepreneurship that I have dealt with, and not to make anybody fearful of becoming an entrepreneur, but more so just for the preparation. I feel like I could have better bounced back or been a little bit more resilient dealing with these things had somebody else shared some of the hardships. And I actually wish I would have made like a complete list of all the things, but maybe it's good that I didn't, because you guys would be like, you know what? The 9-to-5 ain't seeming that bad. And I want you to become a full-time entrepreneur if that is your desire and you really feel called to it. But just being prepared, so to speak, to go through these things, it's not going to eliminate the disappointment, but it's going to be able to better help you cope with the disappointment. And one of the things that I wish that we as people overall could just get better at is just learning how to cope with disappointment better, because that will create people who are more resilient and create entrepreneurs who don't quit. There's been so many times that I've wanted to quit where I'm like, you know what? Onlyfans.com, let me type in my email, create my account, or let me go find a sugar daddy. Let me go live with I'm going to figure something out. The only reason a 9-to-5 isn't really an option is because I just haven't had enough corporate experience. So I'm like, I'm going to have to figure something else out. But at the end of the day, I want you to be resilient in entrepreneurship. And so when you run into some of the dark parts of entrepreneurship, I want you to be resilient. I want you to find support. I want you to be prayerful. And I want you to remind yourself, you know what? This is my first time operating at this level. What can I learn from this, and how can I be better? So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I want you to tell me, what are some of your fears around entrepreneurship, and how can you best prepare to make sure that you are showing up as your best? So leave me a comment below and make sure that you subscribe. All right, take care. Until next time, work hard so you can live soft.